Welcome to the U.S. Diversity Immigrant Visa Program tutorial, Submitting an Entry. In this tutorial, we will introduce you to the U.S. Diversity Immigrant Visa Program and provide step-by-step guidance to help you submit an entry. You can also learn about the Diversity Visa Program on our website. The Immigration Act of 1990 established the Diversity Visa, or DV program, where 55,000 immigrant visas would be available in an annual lottery, starting in fiscal year 1995. The lottery aims to diversify the immigrant population in the United States by selecting applicants mostly from countries with low rates of immigration to the United States in the previous 5 years. Diversity visas, or DVs, are distributed among 6 geographic regions: Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, and South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. No single country may receive more than 7% of the available DVs in any one year. Every year, the Department of State publishes the list of eligible DV countries on our website. To enter the DV program, there are a few strict but simple requirements. First, there is a limited period of time during which you can register for the DV program during each fiscal year. Second, only individuals born in countries whose natives qualify to enter are eligible to submit a DV entry. Native ordinarily means someone born in a particular country, regardless of the individual's current country of residence or nationality. Native can also mean someone who is entitled to be charged to a country other than the one in which he or she was born under the provisions of Section 202B of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Because a numerical limitation is placed on immigrants entering from a country or geographic region, each individual is charged to a country. Your chargeability refers to the country whose limitation you count towards. If you were not born in an eligible country, there are 2 other ways you may be able to qualify: through your spouse or through your parents. For immigration purposes, a spouse is a legally married husband or wife. Remember, the United States legally recognizes same-sex marriage. Same-sex spouses are eligible for the same immigration benefits, including diversity visas, as opposite-sex spouses. Claiming your spouse's country of birth. If your spouse was born in a country whose natives are eligible, you can claim your spouse's country of birth, provided that both you and your spouse are named on the selected entry, are issued diversity visas, and enter the United States at the same time. For example, if you are born in Canada, whose natives are not eligible to enter the DV lottery, but your spouse was born in Spain, whose natives are eligible to enter the DV lottery, you can claim your spouse's country of birth, Spain, as your country of eligibility, as long as you include your spouse on your DV entry. Claiming a parent's country of birth. Or, you can claim the country of birth of either of your parents if you were born in a country in which neither parent was born and which your parents were not resident at the time of your birth. In general, people are not considered residents of a country in which they were not born or legally naturalized if they are only visiting the country temporarily or stationed in the country for business or professional reasons on behalf of a company or government. For example, let's say your parents were born in Estonia. Natives of Estonia are eligible for the DV lottery at the time you enter. You were born in Canada, while your parents were living there for a temporary period, but natives of Canada are not eligible to enter the DV lottery. You can claim the country of birth, Estonia, of either of your parents. The third requirement for the DV program is that you must meet either the education or work experience requirements. Only you, as the principal applicant, must meet this requirement. Your spouse and children do not have to meet this requirement. In order to register for the DV program, you do not need to prove that you've met the education or work experience requirements. You must, however, meet this requirement at the time you apply for your visa. Meeting the education requirement. To meet the education requirement, you must have completed a 12-year course of elementary and secondary education in the United States or a comparable course of study in another country, sufficient in itself to qualify a student to apply for college admission. A high school education means successful completion of a formal course of elementary and secondary education comparable to completion of a 12-year course in the United States. It is permissible to meet the educational requirement in less than 12 years or more than 12 years if the course of study completed is equivalent to a U.S. high school education. A general education diploma, GED test, or its foreign equivalent will not satisfy this requirement. Meeting the work experience requirement. To meet the work experience requirement, you must have 2 years of experience in the last 5 years in an occupation which, by U.S. Department of Labor definitions, requires at least 2 years of training or experience that is classified in a specific vocational preparation or SVP rating of 7.0 or higher. To determine if your work experience meets the requirement, visit the U.S. Department of Labor's ONET online database, www.onetonline.org. The ONET online database assigns specific vocational preparation or SVP ratings for each occupation. Once you have confirmed that you meet the country of birth requirement and the education or work requirement, and the DV registration period has begun, you can submit an entry to the DV program. Select Begin Entry. Enter your last or family name, first name, and middle name as they appear or will appear in your passport. If your passport does not list a given name, enter FNU. Select your gender, male or female. Select your day of birth and month of birth from the drop-down menu. Then enter your year of birth. Enter the city where you were born. Do not enter the district, county, province, or state. Select the country where you are born from the drop-down menu. It is very important that you enter the correct country of eligibility, otherwise your entry may be disqualified. Next, you will upload a recent photograph of yourself. Review the DV instructions to make sure your photo meets our photograph requirements. You do not need to include a photograph for your spouse or child who is already a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, but you will not be penalized if you do. Group photographs will not be accepted. You must submit an individual photograph. Your entry may be disqualified or your visa refused if your photograph is not recent, has been manipulated in any way, or does not meet the specifications explained in our DV instructions. Enter your mailing address, including the street, city or town, district, county, province or state, postal code or zip code, and country. Select the country where you live today from the drop-down menu. Enter your phone number. This is optional. Enter your email address. Confirm your email address by entering it again. Your email address will be used to provide you with additional information if you are selected. It is important that you provide an email address that you have access to, and that you will still be able to access when selectees are announced several months later. Enter the highest level of education you have achieved as of today. Remember, you must meet the education or work experience requirement at the time you apply for your visa. Please review the educational requirements as explained earlier in this tutorial and in the DV instructions. Select your current marital status. Mistakes are often made by applicants who do not select their correct marital status. Failure to complete this information correctly can lead to disqualification from the DV program. Here are some important points to remember about marital status. Select unmarried if you have never been married. Select married if you are legally married, even if you are married but currently separated, no longer live with your spouse, haven't seen your spouse in many years, or even if you plan to be divorced before you apply for a visa. If you are married at the time of your DV entry, but haven't seen your spouse in many years, or plan to be divorced by the time the DV lottery selections are made, you must still list your spouse. If you are selected for the DV lottery, you simply won't submit a visa application, Form DS-260, for your spouse. Only a relationship legally considered to be a marriage in the jurisdiction where it took place establishes eligibility as a spouse for immigration purposes. Civil unions and domestic partnerships are not considered legal marriage for immigration purposes. Same-sex spouses are eligible for the same immigration benefits, including diversity visas, as opposite-sex spouses. Failure to list your eligible spouse will result in your disqualification and refusal of all visas in the case at the time of the visa interview. Select divorced if you are legally divorced from your spouse. Select widowed if you were married, your spouse died, and you are not currently remarried. Select legally separated if a court has formally declared that you and your spouse are legally separated. Legal separation means that your spouse will not be eligible to immigrate as your derivative. Legal separation means you have gone to court and had a separation agreement accepted by the court. This happens when people do not want to divorce yet, but need a formal agreement covering things such as who pays for the shared expenses during the separation, access and custody to any children, and so on. Do not select legally separated if you have simply separated from your spouse but have not yet divorced. A spouse who is already a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident will not require or be issued a diversity visa and does not need to be included on your entry. See the frequently asked questions on our DV instructions for more information about marital status. Enter the number of children you have and select Continue. Mistakes are most often made by applicants who incorrectly enter the number of children they have. Failure to complete this information correctly can lead to disqualification from the DV program. Here are some important points to remember about entering the number of children you have. List the name, date of birth, gender, city or town of birth, and country of birth for all living unmarried children under 21 years of age, whether or not they are living with you, or whether or not they intend to accompany or follow to join you should you immigrate to the United States. Submit individual photographs of each of your children using the same technical specifications as your own photograph. Be sure to include all living natural children, all living children legally adopted by you, all living stepchildren who are unmarried and under the age of 21 on the date of your electronic entry, even if you are no longer legally married to the child's parent, and even if the child does not currently reside with you and/or will not immigrate with you. Married children and children over the age of 21 are not eligible for the DV. However, the Child Status Protection Act protects children from aging out in certain circumstances. If your DV entry is made before your unmarried child turns 21 and the child turns 21 before visa issuance, he or she may be treated as though he or she were under 21 for visa processing purposes. A child who is already a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident will not require or be issued a diversity visa and does not need to be included on your entry. See the frequently asked questions on our DV instructions for more information about family members. Failure to list all children who are eligible will result in disqualification of the principal applicant and refusal of all visas in the case at the time of the visa interview. If you state that you are married and your spouse is not a U.S. citizen or a U.S. lawful permanent resident, and/or you state that you have children, the form will take you to Part 2, Derivatives. If you state that your spouse is not a U.S. citizen or U.S. lawful permanent resident, answer the following questions. Enter your spouse's last or family name, first name, and middle name as they appear or will appear in their passport. If their passport does not list a given name, enter FNU. Select your spouse's day of birth and month of birth from the drop-down menu, then enter their year of birth. Choose your spouse's gender. Enter the city where your spouse was born, if known. Do not enter district, county, province, or state. Choose the country where your spouse was born from the drop-down menu. Upload a recent photograph of your spouse. If you stated that you have a child or children, answer the following questions. Enter your first child's last or family name, first name, and middle name as they appear or will appear in their passport. If their passport does not list a given name, enter FNU. Select your child's day of birth and month of birth from the drop-down menu, then enter their year of birth. Select your child's gender, male or female. Enter the city where your child was born, if known. Enter birth city only. Do not enter district, county, province, or state. Select the country where your child was born from the drop-down menu. 14H. Upload a recent photograph of your child. You will be required to enter the same information for all living unmarried children under 21 years of age. Select Continue. On or about May 5th, all entrants may check their entry status on the Electronic Diversity Visa or EDV website, www.dvlottery.state.gov. At that time, you will be able to enter your confirmation number and see if your entry has been selected. If your entry has been selected, follow the instructions given to you on the EDV website for further processing in the DV program. We hope this tutorial has been helpful. Good luck with your entry!